Imagine if everything you believed about Earth's place in the universe was a carefully manufactured lie, that humanity's greatest strength, its resilience, its defiance, its endless drive to conquer the unknown, was never its own, but something carefully sculpted in the shadows of history. What if the United States, the powerhouse of Earth, had never truly risen on its own, but had been prepared? It all began with a signal, faint, almost imperceptible, buried beneath the white noise of cosmic radiation. At first no one noticed. The hum of the universe was filled with countless random emissions, pulsars, quasars, gamma bursts, all the chaotic chatter of an indifferent cosmos. But then, the pattern emerged. A pulse, a sequence, a message. For years, scientists at NASA, the European Space Agency, and deep space observatories around the world remained oblivious. The radio telescopes were focused elsewhere, on exoplanets, on black holes, on the tantalizing possibility of microbial life within our own solar system. But in a classified facility deep within the Nevada desert, hidden beneath layers of hardened security and misdirection, a small team had been listening. The National Reconnaissance Office's Signal Anomaly Division, a branch so secretive that even members of Congress were unaware of its existence. And when they decoded the signal, they understood. It wasn't an invitation, it was a warning. The first confirmed transmission arrived in 2036, buried within cosmic radiation waves originating from the Perseus arm of the Milky Way. A series of complex mathematical formulas embedded. Within it hinted at something terrifying, an approaching force moving with precision, consuming everything in its path. The message wasn't directed at Earth alone. It was a last-ditch distress beacon from a dying world, a desperate cry for help from a civilization that had already fallen. By the time the United States government confirmed its authenticity, the remnants of that world had already been reduced to dust. The world's superpowers were alerted, but not the public. Panic was the greatest enemy. Mass hysteria could fracture the fragile global order before the first shot was even fired. Instead, governments convened behind closed doors. The United Nations Security Council, usually divided by political interests, found itself faced with a singular, undeniable truth. They were coming, and Earth was unprepared. Many believed diplomacy was the only way forward. If a superior extraterrestrial force was inbound, why assume hostility? Perhaps these beings were explorers, emissaries of an interstellar civilization reaching out to a young species on the brink of cosmic discovery. But within the highest levels of the U.S. military-industrial complex, those illusions were shattered instantly, because America already knew the truth. Since the Roswell incident of 1947, the United States had engaged in clandestine extraterrestrial research. Not the tinfoil hat conspiracies of tabloid fiction, but something far more disturbing. Fragments of technology recovered from crash sites, anomalous materials that defied human engineering, biological specimens that raised more questions than answers. The greatest minds in physics, aerospace, and quantum mechanics had spent decades studying these artifacts, and they all pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity wasn't alone. It never had been, and the civilizations beyond our stars weren't necessarily friendly. The Zephyrian Collective, that was the name intelligence analysts assigned to them. A predatory empire, expanding outward from the galactic core, absorbing or annihilating anything in its path. Reports indicated that they weren't driven by conquest alone. They were something worse. A force of nature, a civilization built on the systematic erasure of lesser species. They didn't just conquer planets, they deleted them, scouring biospheres clean, stripping entire worlds of resources, and leaving nothing behind but hollow husks adrift in the void. And Earth had just become their next target. For the first time in history, survival depended on a singular, absolute decision. Earth would not submit. It would fight. But how do you fight an enemy that has already conquered half the known galaxy? The Pentagon's War Council convened in a classified underground complex beneath Washington, D.C., known only by its codename, Ironhold. The war strategists, Aerospace engineers, military tacticians, and Black Ops intelligence agents all agreed on one thing: brute force alone wouldn't be enough. Humanity's weapons, no matter how advanced, were centuries behind Zephyrian technology. Even nuclear arsenals were obsolete, in the face of energy-based weaponry capable of disintegrating entire fleets in seconds. The war had to be fought differently, with deception, strategy, and something the Zephyrian had never encountered before: human unpredictability. A new branch of the US military was established overnight, the Terran Defense Initiative, TDI, a coalition of the most brilliant minds, elite soldiers, and radical strategists the world had to offer. Every resource was diverted to a singular goal: reverse engineering alien technology and adapting it for human warfare. But there was a problem. Despite decades of black-budget research, Earth had never captured a fully intact alien vessel. The fragments they had were incomplete, damaged relics, remnants of ancient conflicts between civilizations long since extinct. To truly stand a chance, the US military needed something more: a live specimen, a working warship. Operation Nightfall was born. The mission: lure a Zephyrian scout ship into Earth's gravity well, disable it mid-atmosphere, and retrieve it intact for study. It was a suicide run, at least that's what the skeptics claimed, but the team selected for the operation knew the stakes. Failure meant extinction. Success meant the first true step toward fighting back. In the dead of night at a classified airstrip outside of Groom Lake, better known as Area 51, a new class of prototype stealth fighters prepared for launch. The SRX-77 Valkyries, equipped with an experimental cloaking system derived from recovered extraterrestrial alloys. A dozen of the world's finest pilots, trained in absolute secrecy, briefed on a mission that could very well define the fate of humanity. Some believed the plan was reckless, that even if a scout ship was captured, it would be impossible to understand Zephyrian technology in time. But what the world didn't know was that the United States had already been preparing for this war for nearly a century, and the secrets, buried in the depths of black site laboratories, held answers beyond human imagination. The countdown began. Midnight struck, and Earth's first act of defiance began. The night was quiet. Too quiet. From the outside, Groom Lake appeared like any other classified military installation, a barren stretch of desert, silent beneath the cold Nevada sky. But deep beneath the surface, hidden from the prying eyes of satellites and spies, something unprecedented was unfolding. Inside a reinforced underground command center, bathed in dim red lighting, a dozen high-ranking officials stood in tense silence. The operation had begun. Screens flickered with real-time telemetry. Tactical officers monitored radar feeds, their fingers poised over encrypted communication lines. Every sensor in low Earth orbit was tracking a single objective. The bait had been set. For the past 3 months, the United States had been transmitting a carefully engineered distress signal into deep space, a falsified call for help, crafted using recovered fragments of an ancient alien dialect. If the Zephyrian had any presence in the system, if their scouts were already lurking in the Oort, cloud monitoring Earth from the shadows, they would hear it, and they would come. High above the planet, outside the range of conventional satellites, the SRX-77 Valkyrie squadron waited. They hung in the darkness, cloaked in an experimental optical camouflage derived from unknown alloys retrieved decades ago. Each aircraft was a marvel of classified engineering, capable of bending light around its frame, rendering it nearly invisible to the naked eye. Their mission was simple in theory, deadly in execution: lure the enemy in. Disable the ship before. It could transmit an alert, capture it intact. But there was one problem. No one had ever seen a Zephyrian warship up close. Sure, the Pentagon had scraps, ruins from conflicts predating Earth's recorded history, shattered fragments of hull plating found on the dark side of the moon, strange artifacts hidden beneath Antarctic ice, but never an intact, fully operational vessel, which meant that as the countdown to first contact neared zero, no one knew. exactly what to expect. Then it happened. At precisely 02:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the long-range sensors detected an anomaly. A gravitational distortion, subtle but undeniable, just beyond the orbit of the Moon. The enemy had arrived. At first, the object seemed like nothing more than a blur, an irregularity in the fabric of space, shimmering as if reality itself was struggling to contain it. But then, as Earth's atmospheric interference interacted with its presence, it revealed itself, a vessel, and it was nothing like any human warship. The Zephyrian scout ship did not reflect light. It absorbed it, as though its hull was forged from the void itself. Its surface rippled, a flowing, liquid metal exterior that seemed to shift and breathe. It had no visible engines, no exhaust, no conventional propulsion system. And yet, it moved with precision, weaving through the upper atmosphere like a predator circling its prey. The mission clock began ticking. Within seconds, encrypted orders were relayed to the Valkyrie squadron. The lead pilot, Commander Elias Rourke, a decorated ace with over 2,000 hours of classified flight experience, tightened his grip on the throttle. His voice was calm, unwavering. "We've got movement, all units, weapons hot, repeat, weapons hot, eyes sharp, they don't see us yet." No response from the alien craft. It hovered just beyond the stratosphere, scanning, analyzing, and waiting. Then, without warning, it moved. Faster than any known aircraft, the Zephyrian scout ship darted across the sky in an impossible trajectory, shifting directions at angles that defied human physics. It wasn't just searching for the distress signal, it was hunting. In that moment, every pilot in the Valkyrie squadron understood the horrifying truth. The Zephyrian weren't just scouting Earth, they already knew we were here. "Command, this is Valkyrie 1. Target is maneuvering erratically." "This isn't a recon flight, I repeat. This isn't recon. We've been compromised." The order came instantly. "Engage!" The sky erupted. The first missile struck the alien craft dead center, a direct impact. But instead of an explosion, something impossible happened. The Zephyrian hull absorbed the energy, dispersing it like ripples in water. The missile, designed to breach the thickest armor on Earth, had been rendered useless in an instant. Then the ship retaliated. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from its core, cutting through the night sky. One of the Valkyrie fighters, Valkyrie 4, was hit instantly. No flames, no wreckage. Just an eerie silence as the jet disintegrated, its very molecular structure reduced to nothing. A single thought gripped the pilots. "We can't win this." Fight. But the mission had to continue. Commander Rourke made a split-second decision. The prototype fighter jets weren't equipped with energy-based weaponry, but they had something else, an experimental electromagnetic disruptor originally designed for missile defense. "Valkyrie Squadron, follow my lead. We're taking this thing down now." They banked hard, spiraling into an aggressive attack formation. If conventional weapons wouldn't work, they'd have to improvise. Rourke's fighter shot forward at Mach 5, skimming the edges of the stratosphere. The alien vessel locked onto him immediately, its sleek form twisting, adapting, almost as if it was alive. Then, at the last possible second, he fired. A concentrated EMP blast erupted from his aircraft, a pulse of raw, weaponized energy. The alien ship's surface shimmered violently, its flowing liquid metal exterior suddenly convulsing. For the first time, the enemy faltered. That was all they needed. The second EMP strike hit harder, knocking the Zephyrian ship into a violent spiral. Alarms blared across mission control. The alien vessel was falling, plummeting toward Earth at breakneck speed. Somewhere deep within the Pentagon, inside the heavily fortified operations bunker, a 4-star general smiled. The plan had worked. For the first time in recorded history, a Zephyrian warship had been forced from the sky. But as the wreckage descended, something felt wrong. The ship wasn't crashing. It was reconfiguring itself. The liquid metal hull twisted, reshaping, adapting, reacting in real time to the unthinkable. The pilots barely had time to react before the shattered remains of the power. Zephyrian vessel began to rebuild itself, fusing back together, as if the destruction had never happened. "Command, we have a problem." Then the impossible occurred. From the heart of the wreckage, something emerged. Not a machine, not a pilot, something else. something that had been waiting inside, something that wasn't supposed to be seen by human eyes. And in that moment, as the true nature of the Zephyrians' power was revealed, the pilots of the Valkyrie squadron realized the horrifying truth. The war had already begun. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to stand still. The wreckage of the Zephyrian craft hung suspended in midair, its liquid metal hull quivering, rippling like the surface of a disturbed pond. Then, it happened. Something pulled itself free from the ruins. At first it was a shifting shadow, a silhouette against the burning sky. Then the air itself seemed to recoil from its presence. A figure emerged, stepping forth from the collapsing vessel, something that was never meant to exist within the boundaries of human understanding. It was tall, taller than any human, standing, nearly 10 feet, its elongated frame unnaturally slender yet impossibly strong. Its skin, if it could even be called that, was a fluid darkness, a shifting obsidian hue that absorbed the very light around it. No facial features, no eyes, no mouth, and yet it was aware. The pilots of Valkyrie Squadron, hardened warriors who had faced death 100 times over, felt it before they even saw it. A pulse of something primal, something ancient, something wrong. Then, the voice. It did not speak in words, nor in any language ever recorded. It spoke in thought, in raw sensation, a single message, not whispered, but forced into the minds of those who dared look upon it. You were never meant to survive. The world lurched, fought to you. The first time, the highly trained elite squadron lost formation, their disciplined flight paths dissolving into chaos. Something deep inside them screamed, a warning encoded into the very fabric of their DNA. This thing was not just alien. It was a nightmare given form. Then it moved, not walked, not ran, but shifted. One moment, it stood atop the burning wreckage. The next, it was among them. 10,000 feet above Earth's surface, inside the cockpits of billion-dollar war machines, the Valkyrie pilots felt true terror. Valkyrie 5 is down, I repeat, static. In the blink of an eye, an entire jet vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The entity twisted through the sky in ways that defied physics, its form warping in and out of perception. It was studying them, testing them. And one by one, the finest pilots humanity had ever produced were being erased from existence. At mission control, hardened military officials watched in horrified silence. "Sir, what the hell are we looking at?" one of the analysts whispered. Four-star general at the center of the room did not answer. He simply stared at the live feed, at the black silhouette dancing through the sky, untouchable, unstoppable. For decades, the US had prepared for an alien war. But they had prepared for the wrong kind of enemy. This was not a battle of firepower, not a war of machines. This was something else, something far worse, and humanity was losing. The last stand command, this is Rourke. The commander's voice was raw, ragged, fighting against the terror clawing at his mind. We can't fight this. Think, EMP didn't work, projectiles didn't work. It's like it's not even here in the same way we are. Static. Valkyrie 3 is gone. Static. One by one, his team was being erased from reality. Rourke's breathing was shallow. He had trained for every imaginable threat. Nuclear warfare, cyber warfare, orbital defense. Not this. The entity twisted, in front of him, as if it had always been there. It didn't attack. It watched. Then, it reached for him. A single elongated limb stretched toward his cockpit. Not touching, not striking, just reaching. And that was when he heard it. A whisper. Not outside, but inside his own thoughts. You were never meant to leave your world. Pain ripped through his skull, an unbearable pressure, a vice grip tightening. Around his mind. It was inside his head. He fought against it, against the force dragging him into oblivion. His vision blurred, his heartbeat slowed, his body was shutting down, and then the failsafe triggered. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, in a classified bunker, a dead man's switch was flipped. The Phoenix Protocol. The final weapon high above. The Earth in geostationary orbit, an array of dormant satellites awoke. Weapons unlike anything publicly known, technology reverse-engineered from artifacts hidden away for decades, activated in perfect synchronization. The X-9 relic-class disruptors darted their purpose? To sever the connection. A pulse of energy unlike anything ever recorded tore through the sky. Not an explosion, not an EMP. Something else, a signal collapse, a frequency engineered to do the impossible, to force whatever the Zephyrian were out. Of sync with the physical reality of Earth, the entity froze. For the first time, it recoiled, a shriek. Not heard, but felt, rippled across the sky, and then it vanished. Not destroyed, not defeated, just forced away. For now, the aftermath, the battlefield was silent, too silent. Where there should have been wreckage, there was nothing. Where there should have been bodies, there was nothing. No trace of Valkyrie 5, no debris, no record of what had transpired, except for the broken telemetry data buried deep within the Pentagon's classified archives. The United States had won, but it was not a victory, because deep within the wreckage of the alien vessel, before it, vanished, the remains of an artifact had been recovered, something ancient, something that did not belong to the Zephyrian, something older. And in that moment, those who knew the truth realized the most terrifying possibility of all. The Zephyrian were not the true enemy. They were running, hiding, because something far worse was coming, and Earth was now on its radar. The final question: what if the United States hadn't shot down that ship? What if the Zephyrian weren't invaders, but fugitives, escaping something even they feared? And what if, in our arrogance, we just signaled to the universe exactly where we are? The war had not ended. It had only just begun. What do you think? Was this an act of defense? Or did humanity just make a terrible mistake? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to uncover more hidden truths about our place in the universe, subscribe to XenoChronicles now. The next chapter is already written.